Hey, this is Zach from Now You Know. You're about to see one of our first Tesla Time interviews. This is our electric interview with Fiona. She's an amazing person, and when I saw that she posted on her Facebook right before this trip to New York that she was looking for things to do in 2017 that were new to her, I put down, hey, do you want to be interviewed by Now You Know? And of course, she said yes, and you'll see why. She's the kind of person who her philosophy is to say yes to things, and that's what makes her Fiona, makes her amazing. So check out this cool interview we had with her. We were down in New York at JFK. We were supercharging at the JFK Superchargers, and this is what we saw. All right, Now You Know interview with Fiona. This is something we've been waiting to do for a while, and then when you posted the other day, so Fiona has an amazing list of things that she accomplishes, and then she posted the other day on her Facebook that she wanted to do another amazing list, one new amazing thing every week. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you was I wanted to get into your brain and find out what motivates you. Okay, because we met over a year ago at Otherworld, and there we were just super blown away, Jesse and I, by your enthusiasm for life and your excitedness to learn things, and then to learn that you just continue to want to learn more. That just blows us away. So I want to get into your brain. On your Facebook, you mentioned, just in no particular order, that you wanted to learn aerial skills. So before we go any further, what are aerial skills?
So this is both flying trapeze, aerial silks, which are like when you are like Cirque du Soleil style climbing silken fabric and doing dances in them, and then trampoline is a big piece of it too, as well as things like acro yoga. Okay,
now is this something you're already kind of good at?
So this I started at the beginning of 2016, and so the rule for the list was it counted if I did it enough to figure out if I wanted to keep doing it. Okay. And I did aerial silks and discovered that I definitely want to keep doing it. So
how did you decide to even think of that as an idea? Like, is it something you saw and you just...
I went around to all of my friends when I first developed this idea, and I said, what do you do that I don't do?
Okay.
And it turns out that people do amazing things that we do not know about. So one of my coworkers did underwater archaeology. So I took an underwater archaeology course and did a dive with him.
Wait, slow down. You took a course.
Yeah.
And then you did a dive.
Yeah.
Explain, where is this?
So the Marine Archaeological Historical Society in DC, well, in Maryland actually, teaches a class on underwater archaeology skills, which is everything from early, like the design of boats over the ages, so you can identify when you get to a wreck sort of what era it's from, to how you can use magnetic sonar to find wrecks when you're on a boat on the surface, to then once you dive, how you can responsibly keep track of all the artifacts that you're collecting so that it's well recorded where they came from. And then once you have taken the course, you're eligible to volunteer on dives.
So you went on a dive?
Yeah.
In like Chesapeake Bay or something?
Yeah.
And what do you do on a dive?
So I was not picking up any artifacts. I was, you have a guideline down the center, and then you are using that to orient yourself and then record the location of different things, and then you actually have, and this never gets old, you are able to draw underwater using a special pen and paper, and so you're taking sketches of what you found down there, and where it is.
What?
It's so cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's the most fun.
Now that's just one thing.
Yeah.
Like, for most people, that would take care of the whole year. Like, I did that, and then they would just rest on their laurels, and there'd be a photograph for Christmas of you, like, underwater, and that would be it. But that's not all you did.
No.
And so aerial skills, that sounds kind of terrifying.
No, it's so much fun.
Really? So is there foam on the ground and stuff? Or?
Yes, you have a mat for flying trapeze, you're actually in a harness.
Okay.
For silks, they have you do stuff towards the ground until they're confident that you know enough to keep yourself safe.
Wait, flying trapeze, how high off the ground are you when you...
Oh, flying trapeze, you're way off the ground, but there's a net under you and you have a harness on.
So what does it feel like when you're up that high?
So much fun. It's
really?
So good. Yeah. So
are you missing a fear gene? Is that part of this? Like, is that why you're able to do this? Because just the things you just mentioned, you went underwater, you're up high in the sky, like already I'm really scared. So are you scared when you do these things?
No, but I have been afraid in caves. It turns out caves are not my happy place.
Oh, so you're not going to be a spelunker anytime soon. Interesting, but you found that out by doing it.
I found out by exploring underground caves in Turkey, underground cities there, which are these super tiny enclosed places. I can't stand up straight, and I'm 5'2", so they're very small, and you can get around about 8 stories underground, and they're not very well kept. So you like hit cave-ins, and we got a little lost. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna die down here.
So when did you figure out you were scared of this? Like, what level?
So I took my pulse around 6 stories down and realized that it was super elevated. And I was like, this is an interesting reaction. And I realized that my breathing was also a little faster than it should have been. And so when we got back up to the surface, I was describing this to my friend. And she's like, I think you're describing fear, Fiona.
Oh my gosh.
I think those physiological reactions are fear.
But you were able to actually extricate yourself without going into a panic attack.
Yeah, we were fine.
Wow. That sounds so scary. Okay, let's continue on with the list. Skiing, powder skiing out west, Winter Park, Colorado.
So I learned how to ski 4 years ago because I hate winter. I hate the cold. I am a lizard. And so I needed a reason for winter to exist. And so I wanted things that would make me excited for winter to exist. So I picked up skiing, which was awesome. Skiing powder's totally dramatically different from skiing the ice that we have in the East. And
so it's fun. It's actually not horrifying. Like,
no, ice is so much fun. It's all fun. So I did that, and then I also picked up snowboarding this year, which was super fun. And
you don't mind having both your feet strapped in the same board?
I actually love it. It turns out that the forward to back motion is much more natural to me than the side to side of skiing. So I went. I was doing full mountain blues by the end of my second day of snowboarding. It was just like, and I think it helps to have had some snow sense from skiing. I think there's a path dependency.
Okay, so let's just sidestep here for a second. There's going to be an amazing list of things, but where do you just wake up every morning wanting to do something new, or do you have to force yourself to want to do, like, do you have one day every year where you're like, I've just got to do that? Like, what motivates you to want to learn new things? And not just learn new things, like book learning, but do them.
Yeah. Part of it's wanting to experience things with other people. Like, there's these things that people are excited about. And
so the excitement of other people.
Yeah, so you talk to them and you really dig into that, and you get to watch them just light up. And you really want to do that with them. So that's a piece of it. Once I start doing new things, you start to see analogies to other things, and so it becomes easier and easier to learn, which is a really intoxicating process.
Really?
Yeah. So I started with aerial silks, really, but then I'm able to bring that back to trapeze, for example. I'm able to bring that back to rock climbing, or to even there are analogies between blacksmithing and drawing, which I used to do, or even writing. Like, you sort of start to figure out how they can feed off each other.
Like the creativity of them?
Yeah, so the creative process I go through for the editing process of blacksmithing is actually really similar to writing in a way that I did not anticipate. So you draft in clay before you start working with metal.
Oh.
And then you start working with the metal, and you realize that actually you thought you'd be able to apply pressure, but that's twisting a part you didn't want to twist, and so you have to step back and start again.
On the clay?
That's usually you hit. I'm not yet good enough that I can recognize, because the clay is so soft. It's really hard for me to tell actually how pressure will deform the piece until I have a hot piece of metal. The lovely thing about it is it's like Play-Doh. Like, you just get it hot again and then like bend it back, and you're like, no harm, no foul. Wow. It's gonna be fine.
How far do you want to get with a new skill once you've learned it? Does it depend on the thing? Like, for instance, blacksmithing, do you ever go, okay, I made a piece, I'm done forever? Or do you say, oh my gosh, I want to keep doing this forever?
Most things I want to keep doing forever. So, like, weightlifting, I tried for the first time this year. Not into it. Was okay walking away from that.
I'm glad you tried it.
Glad I tried it, because it's been really important to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And so now do you understand it better? Like, if you watched it in the Olympics or something, you would kind of get it?
Yes, and I can appreciate it more, and when people are telling me about what they've accomplished, I can go, wow, I recognize what that means. Some small piece of what went into that.
When did this start for you?
The 52, or the learning new things?
Yeah, learning new things. Like, was it ever since you were a kid, or?
Probably. So I grew up with an older brother who was super wonderful and inclusive, and took me along to everything, and so I learned a ton of things. I was always trying to keep up with these boys who were 3 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And so I think that taught me that the best way to do stuff was just to jump into it. And I became really intrigued with the 0 to 1 is just which means doing things for the first time is a completely different headspace than doing things from the first to the 400th time.
Right.
And I find that 0 to 1 really intoxicating, because you can, in a pretty short period of time, understand things in a dramatically different way.
So what about all that talk of that it takes 10,000 hours to master something? That usually scares me from even starting something, because I'm like, if I wanted to learn, classical piano, I'm gonna have to do this for 10,000 hours. Doesn't that scare you from even wanting to try it?
No, I mean, so I think the 10,000 hour research has been misapplied so much. That is if you want to have professional level mastery of something, which is very different from being competent or in having it to a level where you can enjoy it.
So with drums, you're going to start taking weekly lessons, and do you think at a certain point you'll decide whether to continue or to stop, if it's not fun?
Yes, exactly.
And how do you find, like you just said, you already have things you're doing, so how did you figure out whether you can fit in the time for that?
Well, I still sleep. Yeah, right, exactly. I still sleep sometimes. I can just cut
Right,
back.
so you basically you can push your sleep off or whatever to fit these things in.
Yeah, and
Wow.
and I find that there's so much transition time in my life and every life. I've started using my commutes better. I've started using my hour before sleep better. I've started using my mornings better.
So hour before sleep, you mean to get better sleep, reading or something like that?
Right, well, so I've started to use it for activities, and I sort of do that. I do an activity that sort of lets me doze off until I'm sort of in a dozy state, and then I can just pass straight out.
That's awesome. What are some of those activities? For me, it's reading.
Yeah, reading is a classic one.
Okay.
I've been writing more, but also things like in the new year, my friend's going to teach me to knit.
Nice.
Some baking stuff is pretty soothing, so I'm able to do that late at night. I've been working on my baking.
Just don't leave things in the oven, right?
Right, no, exactly. So usually this is bread. So this is stuff that'll be rising overnight.
Okay. You'll just go to bed with doughy hands.
Doughy hands, exactly.
That's fine. Okay, so some of these I need explaining because they're so. I mean, making goat cheese. Yeah, we all know how to do that. But avalanche training.
Oh yeah.
How do you? What?
So
do you need to go to a mountain with active avalanches to do this, or can you?
Optimally, yeah. So we went.
Optimally.
Yeah, we went to avalanche terrain in Colorado, and the first day is digging someone out who's been caught in an avalanche. So what the search pattern looks like, assuming they have a beacon, how you dig.
Do you search for a dummy? Do you wait till there's been an avalanche and then you go?
No, so we bury. Basically, the instructors go out and bury things in the ground, and then you go and find them.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
Which is awesome. So that's day one, and then day two starts to be preventing yourself from getting to that situation in the first place. So how do you read a landscape, know what the avalanche zones are? How do you travel across avalanche zones or around avalanche zones in the safest way possible?
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I know this doesn't fit, but you recently went hiking in Peru, and this wasn't in snow, right?
Well, the peaks had snow.
Oh, okay.
Where we were sort of at the snow line, at the highest that we went.
Now, to me, when you were talking about your trip, it sounded horrifyingly scary because you were up at super duper heights. How many feet were you up?
The highest we got to was 16,000 feet.
16,000 feet. When we went to Denver, I was just almost out of air, and that's half the height. So 16,000 feet, and then you're just not poking your head up there. You were hiking it for days.
Yeah.
And you were carrying everything on your back that you needed. So how heavy was your pack?
Well, so day one, my two partners were in really bad shape because one had gotten altitude sick the day before, and the other one had gotten calorie deprived and dehydrated taking care of her.
Oh my gosh.
So
it's the three of you.
Right. So I rock up and find them both totally exhausted from this day hike, and I was like, all right, well, I'll just take all the weight. So the first day.
Wasn't also the other option B to go back, or is that not an option?
Well, we were really excited about the trip. We were going to be fine.
Okay.
So I took a bunch of weight the first day. So my pack was probably up a little bit above 60 pounds, and then
60 pounds.
Yeah.
Just picture a bag of concrete. If you're having trouble picturing 60 pounds, because most of us don't carry around 60 pounds in a day. So you're okay. You got a bag of concrete on your back.
Yep.
Okay, good. Crazy. Okay.
Yeah, and
that's all your food.
You're carrying food, water, tents, water purification, all your layers because it's cold.
Water purification because you can't carry all the water you need. Or
Oh, well, I mean, so we are out there for 7 days. So you're only carrying what you need to drink for that period of time. So you're carrying usually 3 liters a person.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sparky decided to go to sleep. So you're carrying 3 liters per person, but you're also going to need to purify water on your trek.
Yes, so you're sort of stopping. That's part of the rhythm of the day, is stopping and purifying water along the way.
Okay.
And we had an incident. We had a SteriPen with us, which uses UV light, which is super cool to purify the water, but it does not, it turns out, like extremely cold water or extremely pure water. And we were getting basically glacial runoff water, which has insufficient minerals to activate the UV filters, sensors. So we ended up falling back to, we didn't realize it was going to be that pure or that cold. And
well, isn't that good? Or...
It is, but it can still have bacteria. You don't want to trust that. So we ended up falling back to our backup purification systems, which were iodine and aqua mirror, which are sort of old school chemical ways to purify.
Doesn't taste as good, probably.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, when you were doing this, did fear enter your mind at all during that? Like, I would have entered my mind just the thought of going up the mountain, but was there ever a time when you were just like, oh gosh?
So I went to the bookstore, which is a term for mountaineering, which is when you are on a cliff face and you pull a chunk of cliff off and then slot it back in, and then try to grab another chunk of cliff and pull it off and try to slot it back in, as though you were taking books off a shelf. Going to the bookstore is, I think, the quintessential example of how to experience fear in the outdoors, because you cannot panic. You're realizing that you're on this cliff face that is incredibly insecure, and you don't want to fling your weight around. You want to keep your weight as evenly distributed and figure out the best path to escape from the situation that you put yourself into, the best line to retreat on. And so there's this moment when you are completely separated from your body and you're thinking things through, but your body is totally frozen, and then you're very slowly giving your body permission to move again. And that is how you experience fear.
Oh my God.
At that altitude.
I got really scared just hearing you talk about that. Oh my God. And how about the fact that you're doing this with other people and you have no control over them? Does that enter in at all?
You go out with people that you trust. I cannot imagine mountain guiding. People who guide in these situations are either saints or insane. I haven't quite figured out where I think that line draws, but I rely super heavily on the people I go out with.
Why do you do it?
There is a kind of decision making and group formation and trust that is almost impossible to get any other way, and it happens fast outdoors. You are, day one, you're making a decision about how much water you're going to carry, and you're not sure when you're going to hit your next water source, and you're making a decision about how much food you should eat now and how much you need to preserve for later, and you're making a decision about, as someone becomes hypothermic or low energy, whether you are pushing on with them or slowing down, right? You're constantly making decisions in a way that is incredibly meaningful and powerful.
When did you know you were ready for something like this? I mean, this wasn't your first time, obviously, but like when you must be kind of moving up the seriousness of your hikes. And so when did you know you're ready for this kind of experience?
So I read a lot of trip reports where you're reading other people on these trips, and I can sort of walk through their decision points with them and say, oh, I feel comfortable doing each of the activities you've described and making each of the decisions that you've described.
Oh, okay. So you can kind of see what level each adventure will be before you do it.
Yeah, and you get a sense. I mean, so I'm now at the point where I sort of say everything up to extreme technical mountaineering I can do. So I can do technical rock climbing, I can do anything backpacking that's non-technical. I feel like I have a big enough bag of tricks that no matter what goes wrong, and stuff will go wrong. I mean, that's part of this. I'll be able to figure it out.
How does that make you feel in your everyday life when it's not a crazy mountain situation?
Very calm.
Really? So like some other, some normal workday scary situation doesn't feel so scary because you know that you've gotten through this?
Right, but yeah, so people are freaking out and you go, it's gonna be okay. Like and you have this whole framework for making decisions that applies in basically every situation where you sort of go, okay, first let's figure out if everyone's safe. Everyone's safe, great, we're like already ahead of the curve. Mm-hmm. And then we can back it out from there and sort of think through that. and you have all the communication skills, because when people get in trouble in the outdoors, it's usually because of interpersonal dynamics. It's usually because someone has an ego, or people are in conflict or not sharing information.
So that really works your social skills to the max, because you have to be good every moment with other people.
Yeah, and
you're relying on them, and they're relying on you.
Yes, and you have to not only be able to come to the right decision, but communicate it in a way that gets buy-in. And sometimes the right decision objectively isn't the right decision for the group, and you need to have a way to figure that out.
Wow. Is memoir writing on your list? Because that definitely has to happen. Okay, so Brazilian...
I started a blog. That was on my list.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome, because we need to hear about all this in detail. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Like what?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is amazing. So I'd done capoeira, which is sort of a really in-the-air, acrobatic, floaty martial art that's not very effective. Jiu-Jitsu is
not very effective. Like
you couldn't actually fight someone with it.
But this you can.
Oh yeah, this is like you're on the ground in someone's face and you're trying to submit them. So you're trying to find ways to break arms or legs in ways that make them stop wanting to be near you.
Okay.
It's the base of the ground game for mixed martial arts, which is how you know how effective it is.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Now, you got an injury lately.
Yes.
Last year?
Yeah.
Or no, when was
in September.
In September. And how did you get this injury? What was this injury?
I tore my pectoral muscle. I tore it falling off a bike during my century, which was another one of the new things I did this year.
Okay, tell me what a century is.
It's biking 100 miles in a day. So it's the first time I'd ever done that. It's the first time I'd ever biked more than probably 40 miles in a day.
That sounds super hard, but it doesn't sound dangerous. Why did you get hurt?
My friend mentioned popovers, and I got really excited because popovers are delicious, and so I rode my bike off the road.
Okay, that's good to know.
Which is following a long line of, so I rock climb and I do all these things, and I never get injured during those things. My only concussion was I got while playing squash. My only major injury this year I got riding a bike. I mean, really.
So because basically you let your defenses down.
Probably.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, and so has that injury kept you from doing any of the things you want to do on your list so far?
So I did have to take a pause.
So we just picked you up from rock climbing. That didn't stop you from doing rock?
Well, I couldn't rock climb for about 3 months. I was really, really good. I have a long history of not letting my injuries heal all the way. And so this time I was like, I have to let this heal. So I took off for 3 months. Actually, the trip to Peru was going to be more technical at one point.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So more like ice climbing and stuff. But we realized that I was going to be the primary leader, and I couldn't lead with the pack. So
okay, a few more, and then I want to get some of these on here are great, like reading horror. Like I feel like I could keep up with you on that if I wanted to. What does that mean to you? Like, so is that something you've never done before?
Never done it. So I am super sensitive to, like, I can't even watch slapstick comedy because I get really upset. I'm like, the person might be hurt or sad.
So this is a challenge then.
So this is a challenge. It's figuring out how to appreciate the art while dialing down the empathy meter that like interferes with my ability to appreciate the art.
Oh, so are you going to do it with friends, or how are you going to do it? Like, don't do it at night before going to bed, right? I mean that.
I'm starting with Sandman because I love Neil Gaiman, so this is an author that I trust. And then eventually, I think I'm going to try to watch horror. Like I think it's how can I appreciate this as an art form, and I will definitely do it with friends.
And this is because you have some friends that appreciate it, and you're like, I want to be able to share this with you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Cooking for myself regularly. That sounds like something that, if just that one thing alone, that if a person could pull that off, it would be an amazing skill. It's just one of your 52 for next year.
Yeah.
So have you do any cooking?
I didn't before this year, so I it's part of the way that I make so much time for myself, I realize, but it's also not super healthy, and people seem to take a lot of pleasure from cooking, and it's a big social thing. So I've been figuring out how to cook. It's super fun.
Now, what I want to get at is, for someone watching this who wants to drive themselves a little further, wants to take on something new. Normally we have a New Year's resolution, and it's to do one thing.
Yeah.
And you're doing these 52. I feel like for most people that would just overwhelm them. It would overwhelm me if I had a list of 52 things, because I don't even know where I'd begin.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend for someone who'd like to be like you and like to try some new things? Do you recommend them jumping right into 52 things? Or do you recommend that they try one? Like, what did you find was most effective in the beginning?
So I ended up with 52 because I first did a little bit of information gathering. I turned to people around me and said, what do you love? And I ended up with a list of about 40, and I was like, well, clearly. And that was just in a week.
Okay.
So I recommend turning to the people around you. It turns out people are super supportive of this kind of endeavor. And so you say, hey, I'm trying to learn new stuff. What do you do? Oh, you tap maple trees? Can I learn with you?
Awesome.
And then everyone that I've met says absolutely. They're super jazzed that you're excited about whatever it is that they're excited about.
That's cool. Right. So, I mean, it's the approach that you're taking, which is to not make it a stressful thing.
Yeah.
Make it a fun thing.
Right. And to say yes to every time, I'm going out skiing, my friend's going out snowboarding, and I go, oh no, I don't snowboard. Like removing the I don't, or I can't, or I'm not that kind of person from the equation, just saying, that's a thing that exists in the world, so that's going to be a thing I do.
So that's a big thing right there. You just said to say yes to things.
Yeah.
And most people will do this. They'll go, no, I'll say yes to things, but not that one. So like reading horror, they'll go, well, I just don't like horror movies, so I can't that can't be a yes. You basically have turned that on its head because you're saying, I'm just going to say yes to it.
Yeah.
How can you say yes to that?
Yeah, so Jungian psychology has this concept of the shadow bag, which is this place where you've put all the things you convince yourself that you can't do, and you carry around the shadow bag with you everywhere. And the people who seem super light and happy and energized and able to do everything are people with very light shadow bags because they're not wasting energy dragging this thing around. And I find that's a really helpful image for me whenever I hit a block. So running was one of my big ones. I convinced myself I could not run. I was not a runner. I did not run. And I realized that was weighing me down. That was a thing that took energy to convince myself of.
Interesting.
And so it's just flipping that story, figuring out a way to tell you.
So which comes first? If you want to convince yourself that you're a runner now, is it that you just go, yes, I can do it? Or is it, I'm going to go try and run tomorrow, and if I can do it, then I'll be a runner?
Yeah, it's the...
Or is it both? Like which comes first?
It's both. So a runner is simply someone who runs. I am capable of running, therefore I can be a runner, right? It's trying to break that, the way in which it seems scary or other.
Did it just happen that the night before you go, you know what, tomorrow, I don't care what happens, I'm going to go try it? Is that like the first part of it?
Yeah.
Where you just go, and do you allow yourself to find out the next day that you weren't a runner? Do you say, I'm going to go try it, but if it turns out I'm not a runner, I'm okay with it?
Yeah, and then this is part of I want to do it to the point where I figure out if I want to keep doing it.
Gotcha.
But I got to give it a fair shot. So like running, because there's so much resistance. I fought through my first probably 4 times running, just going, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, and then I realized, like, I'm telling myself that may or may not be true, but I'm not honestly evaluating this right now.
Interesting. So wait, so you're on your first run and you're telling yourself, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And it's just because it's not you, it doesn't feel like you, or it's uncomfortable, or it's like, why?
It's I think in my case it's fear of being bad at it, and so if I convince myself that I don't like it or I'm not trying hard, then I don't have to ever see whether or not I'm good at it, because I haven't earnestly given it a shot.
So you are still always aware of what other people might think of you in your skill level, like that's always there?
I think it's what I might think of myself in my skill level.
Oh, okay.
I think I have found nothing but people being supportive. I think it's the climate.
So that's important.
Yes.
Okay.
People are great.
So basically, to have a coach or a mentor in each of the things you do until you get your feet. Like,
yeah, who's super excited to see you there.
That's super important then. So basically, you can't hope to be that successful if you just go out and do it yourself. It really would help to go and do it with a friend who's good at it.
It definitely helps, yeah.
All right, let's just go through a couple more of these because this is just amazing. Doing a split.
Yep.
Trail running.
Yep.
Teaching climbing rescue techniques. I love this one. Having a credit card.
Not very good at adulting. But I had a credit card. It was great. They're great. Everyone should have a credit card.
So before you had a credit card, had you just told yourself, like, I don't need that, or that's stupid, or like what kept you, or was it fear? Like what kept you?
Yeah, I get doing bills and stuff is really overwhelming. Why would I need another thing? Why would I add that? I was fine with my checking account. Everything was fine.
But some friend or whatever walked you through it and was like, this will be fun. And then now that you've had it, you're like,
it's great.
This is cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Acting a loosely scripted role assigned to me in a world built by the incomparable Christy. So this is Otherworld.
This is Otherworld.
This is where we met. So you're now a staff person at Otherworld. Like,
Yeah.
so not only did you play this amazing experience, but then you decided the following year to join them. And how was that?
It was wonderful. It was super interesting playing a role because I so rarely do that. I have a pretty low filter, I think, between me and the world. The world sort of gets me how I am. And so having this actor thing of wanting to react the way I would react to something and then being like, oh no, the character wouldn't react that way, was super interesting. And gave me a lot of empathy for how exhausting interacting is for introverts. Because I think a lot of my introvert friends describe having that kind of mask or filter in their common interactions, which is not something that I'd previously I'd had sympathy for it, but not empathy for it.
Interesting.
So
Now, all these things you're talking about saying yes to, that takes a lot of motivation and inspiration. And so do you feel that every morning when you get up, or there's some things like, why did I say yes to that? Like, I have to go do that now. Do you feel, are you human like the rest of us, or do you just have like a superhuman, like positive outlook every day?
I get super nervous right before starting a new thing. Pretty much always. Like that convincing myself to like walk through the door of the forge to go blacksmithing the first time, or into the circus school the first time, like all of that is a really scary experience, I think, for everyone, certainly for me.
But you have a friend usually that does it with you.
Got a friend who does it with me, and once I've done it enough, I can say, right, the last 17 times you felt this way, Fiona, it turned out great, right? So there is this virtuous cycle that I'm like, okay, right, like I recognize this feeling, and I know that it's completely ridiculous.
So it is like a muscle. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like you work out this muscle and it just starts getting stronger and stronger. And that's probably why people who just never try something new, it's harder and harder to teach an old dog new tricks. Like, it's just...
Right, but that's why so you start with something small. You start with cooking for yourself or reading horror, and then eventually you're rock climbing in Peru.
And that's what I love, is that this list isn't that everything on the list is that hard. Like, you know, for instance, door knocking, trying to start political conversations across party lines, like that is really hard in a mental level, but not on a physical level. And
Yeah.
like, I love that there are things across the board here. There's things that are physically really hard, like a mutter, like and Kyudo, meditative archery.
Yeah.
I mean, those are hard things to do. Acro yoga. What is acro yoga?
So it's partner yoga. So there's a base and a flyer.
Okay.
So there's someone who's on the ground moving their body into positions and supporting another person in the air,
Wow.
also doing body positions.
That's awesome.
It's so much fun.
This list is so amazing. If it's okay with you, we're going to put the list,
Yeah, of course.
like probably text scrolling through the interview, because I just want to maybe give some ideas to people that there's just so many awesome things out there. You're trying them, and you're willing to try them, and that is just inspiring. It inspires me. I hope it inspires other people to just try some things, you know, and I think just be positive about them. And like you said, do them with friends, because there's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
Doing something with a friend, sharing that experience, and then having that experience forever. Like, we will have that Otherworld experience forever. And that's just amazing. And that's from saying yes. And I remember when I said yes to Otherworld, part of me was like, this is weird. No one else I know has ever done this. Why are we doing this? Like, this is weird,
Yeah.
right? And that probably enters your head a lot when you're choosing some of these things, because they are, on their face of it, weird because they are unusual. Thank you so much for talking to me. It's really inspiring talking with you and sharing your story with people. And I can't wait to see what you accomplish this year and what you try. And I want to hear more about it. So thank you. Now you know. Hope you enjoyed this episode where we interviewed Fiona. We're going to be doing more interviews like this. If you like our episodes, please like and subscribe below. It's free, and it just lets you get notifications that all of our new episodes are out and ready for you to watch. Also, if you'd like to support us because you think we're doing a great job, and you know we are, then go to Patreon and give us $2, $5. Anything you can give really helps us out. We're already got like 35 patrons. We're so thankful to you. And it allows us to get the little things that we need to make better shows. A little bit better cameras, a little bit better microphones, and it's all for you so that we can do a better job. So thank you so much, and now you know.